The final speaker here today is someone who, if you don't know her, you should know her. She's Karina Newton. She is the Director of New Media for the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi's office. And Karina has been with the Speaker for a while, been with Pelosi for a while, but what she's actually been in the front lip of is really understanding how do you start applying these new technologies, among them web video, to actually governing now that we're in, as the Democrats are now in power. And she's been really leading a lot of the changes there. And the Speaker herself has taken a real commitment to this. I've been incredibly impressed at how much you guys have really moved the ball in terms of the use of these new technologies in the governing of the country. So she's going to talk about that. Karina.
So Pete always has these fantastic PowerPoint presentations that I can never compete with, so I didn't try. Have to apologize for that. But what I thought we'd do is kind of give an overview of what's been done. And really, YouTube was the thing that changed it for us, because it gave us the ability to have an audience that we could reach that wasn't just on our website. So basically, we would be able to put video out there, and people wouldn't necessarily have to know how to find us, because I don't know how many of you have visited your congressperson's website, but most likely you haven't unless you work in the field. So we started a YouTube account about a year ago, and I think we were actually the first official member of Congress to do that, and that was with when the Speaker was leader. And Jack Kingston, representative, Republican, big message person on the Republican side, started a YouTube account a day later. So I think we count as about the same time in terms of pioneers. And what I wanted to show here is it's really rapidly increasing. Leader Boehner started a site this year. Roy Blunt, Barbara Lee, Ed and Labor Committee just last week, and Rep. Earl Pomeroy has been our most recent House of Representatives addition to YouTube, and there are many other throughout that, but I think pretty much by the end of this year, most members of Congress are going to be utilizing this in some way. The Speaker's website has, YouTube site has, I believe, almost 500 videos. So the next kind of question that we come to is, what's worth putting on YouTube? Who wants to watch what? And, what is of value? So what we've kind of found is, I'm going to give you guys 3 examples. This is a video of a government and oversight hearing where there was a GSA administrator that came to testify. This is Rep. Barney Frank talking about a motion to recommit. And this is Patrick Murphy offering a moment of silence on the House floor. What do you think had the most clicks?
Smith, or Patrick Murphy.
Okay. All right. Patrick Murphy here. Now, mind you, this is a video of silence. This had about 10,000 hits. And this was essentially, this was on the 4-year anniversary.
Because today marks the 4-year anniversary of the war in Iraq. I'd like to offer a moment of silence to the 19 members of my unit that did not make it home from Iraq, and for the thousands of brave Americans that have fallen. On this somber occasion, we must commit.
So then he finishes, and then there is the moment of silence that everybody observed. Then this one is Barney Frank, and what was the guess? A bunch of people had him. Okay. So this is Barney Frank.
Gentleman from Massachusetts recognized for 5 minutes.
This was 2 weeks ago.
Mr. Speaker, never has the willingness of the minority to abuse the process for purely political ends been clearer than today. Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Speaker. Does whining come out of my time?
And this is the
How many hits?
I'll hit you 1 second. This is the GSA hearing.
I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit this, but I can say that I honestly don't have a recollection of the presentation at all.
Well, I assume that given your past experience, you've sat through PowerPoint presentations before.
I have set the
And
PowerPoint.
that during PowerPoint presentations, information is projected in slides, and usually those slides are reviewed by the person making the presentation to reinforce verbally the visual images that are displayed on the slides.
Oftentimes they
Is that your general understanding of what took place on this date?
Yes, I believe that is true. I believe there were PowerPoint slides, and I believe Scott Jennings did speak.
The committee has
Now you'll notice this video is 10 minutes. There's nothing innately funny about the video other than it's 10 minutes long, essentially trying to comprehend what's in this PowerPoint presentation at an official GSA hearing. So this was seen almost 100,000 times off of our YouTube account. The Barney Frank video, which was again on a motion to recommit, which is somewhat of an arcane process for most people, was seen nearly 50,000 times. And Rep. Patrick Murphy's moment of silence, recognizing the 4-year anniversary of the war, I believe was at about 12 to 13,000. So it's kind of an interesting thing, and they all serve different purposes. Essentially, let's see. This is kind of how we use web video in Congress right now. So I think those give an example of where we are. There's Rep. Murphy, partially I think was a documentation. It was essentially, you know, this is what's going on in Congress this day. Congress recognizes that 4 years of war has taken a toll. And that this is something to say, where are we going? You know, we need a new direction in Iraq. But it was also a moment where we could put something on YouTube and show people, and then people could also embed that video on their blogs, et cetera, that this is a universal experience, that Congress isn't just in Washington. It's not a chamber you can't reach. This is a shared experience. And then with Mr. Waxman's hearings, there was a piece that's coming out in this week's Newsweek, which I think is essentially explains the popularity. He says, last week, for instance, Waxman's House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform heard startling testimony about how the Army lied repeatedly to protect its image, covered up those lies, then lied again. Instead of depressing me, the hearings left me strangely exhilarated. And we've put up a lot of the hearings from Oversight on our YouTube site, and it really is, you know, you're going through, you know, Pat Tillman's brother testified last week and Jessica Lynch, and there are these ways in which transparency and accountability is occurring in this Congress that has really been absent for many, many years. And so being able to have YouTube and videos as a forum to show the Democrats bringing back accountability and transparency. There's no more transparent moment than putting something on the internet. It's there. So it's really where the message and the media meet incredibly. And on Rep. Frank, he's hilarious. You know, he doesn't say a thing that comes out of his mouth that's not funny. But he also highlighted hypocrisy in a way that people could understand the legislative process and what Republicans are doing with their motion to recommit. So it was a way to take something that wouldn't really be understandable to a way where you could understand where both Democrats and Republicans are coming from. So the other kind of ways that we do web video, communicating with constituents, and that's really a member of Congress's primary job, is to talk to the people who they represent. And Rep. George Miller just did this for the first time last week, and I'm told that they're going to be improving their technical and editing skills. But just to give you a little bit of taste, it's essentially a mashup of his week. And he takes an interview and then matches it with things that have happened on the floor. So he basically walks you through the week.
Once again, the Congress went on record to stop the war in Iraq.
The American people recognized President Bush's approach in Iraq for what it is, a failure. That's why we sent a message to Washington this past November to change the course, to end this war, to get out of Iraq. That's what the American people said in November.
And he goes on to the next day. So he kind of goes through, you know, public events that have been videotaped and then matches it with his views and response to it. And then we have the transparency and accountability, which is really a lot of the oversight work that is going on in the hearings. Then an important thing, and this is predominantly how our office uses it in addition to working on web video, is rapid response, because really the ability to frame the message before MSNBC does or before Fox News does is really important, especially on the internet. So this is an example from yesterday, actually. We were anticipating the president's veto. We knew that the speaker was going to sign the bill and send it to him. And so that morning, we had 1 minute on the House floor. And so about 20 members of Congress stood up and basically said, this is what we should be doing. The president should not veto this bill. We produced it, it went on YouTube. It also went up on Daily Kos on the front page. And all it is a video that we put together in literally 45 minutes of the different speakers on the floor.
Madam Speaker, 1,460 days ago, we had lost 139 troops, brave men and women, in Iraq. 1,460 days later, Sergeant Michael Hollander from my district, from Little Falls, New Jersey, died on Saturday when an IED detonated near his patrol. He's one of 3,214 more troops that have died since supposedly major operations would cease.
And today, Congress will send President Bush and
so it continues on that. And this is an example of also how the same material can be framed in different ways. Daily Kos posts it saying House Dems take to the floor on Quagmire Accomplished Day, whereas the way we frame it would obviously be a little bit different. And this was the blog post on our blog, The Gavel, that we did, and it's, you know, House Democrats on the floor. It's very, you know, very, very plain. The other element is floor activity. And in the rapid response realm. And this was from last year, and Mr. Gomert essentially said that if Mr. Murtha was around, we would all be speaking German.
Some have not had nice things to say about
calling
our
him a
colleague, Mr.
defeatist.
Murtha, and others wanting to pull out of Iraq quickly. But I understand the faithful visitation that he does routinely. So I say thank God for his big heart. I say thank God for his compassion. Thank God for his visits to the wounded. Thank God for his ministering to grieving families. But thank God he was not here and prevailed after the bloodbaths at Normandy and in the Pacific, or we would be here speaking Japanese or German. Thank you.
Gentleman's time's expired.
Now, Mr. Murtha is on the floor at the time.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania.
I yield myself 1 minute.
Gentleman's right.
I asked the Speaker, was the gentleman at either of those locations? Was the gentleman either at Normandy or any of those locations?
Gentlemen, you want to know which locations?
Yeah.
Normandy was a horrible bloodbath.
I say, were you there?
Oh, no, I wasn't.
Were you in Vietnam?
No, sir, I wasn't.
Were you in Iraq?
No. Oh, I've been over there. I haven't been fighting.
Boots on the ground?
And I do admire the gentleman's compassion, and I do appreciate all that he has done for our wounded. He has done a great service, and that would be you, Mr. Murtha. Thank you for your work.
I yield.
So that was seen about 100,000 times, and that was really in the midst of the debate when Republicans were calling us, you know, terrorist coddlers and defeatists, and Mr. Murtha took a lead on saying we must bring this war to an end. So it was a moment where you could kind of capture something that personified what was going on. So I'm going to go through the last things really quickly because I have 1 minute. Another element is the positive element, which is advancing priorities. Oops. We have well, I guess that's not coming up. We have the innovation agenda. It's great when you see the smart technical people having technical difficulties. There we go. We have the innovation agenda, which is basically a democratic agenda to promote innovation and science. And along with essentially having the agenda up on the website, we also have a YouTube video of the innovation agenda and members of Congress speaking on it. So essentially what we try and do is everything that we have in writing, we also try and have in video. Everybody likes their material different ways, and we want to have it as accessible as possible to everyone. And the last element is reaching new audiences and really utilizing that, and that's where I think you'll see the future of where Congress is going. Mr. Pomeroy just started a MySpace page. It's called Earl Jam. And along with him riding on a horse, he also has a YouTube video saying, hey, I'm here new to YouTube and MySpace. He's 54 years old. And one thing that you'll see is there was a piece in his local paper yesterday that said, Pomeroy is quoted as saying, everything I know I learned from staffers under the age of 25. So the Hill is starting to utilize the talent, and one thing we'll never have a shortage of on the Hill is interns and young staffers. So I think they're kind of leading the way to bringing this technology to the forefront. And just one last thing too is we have rules obviously on the official side where we don't, we can't really solicit anything. We can't ask for anything. It's our job to use the taxpayer money wisely to just communicate what we're doing. But there have been some creative ways of trying to get some interaction between members of Congress and constituents. And I think you'll also see more of this. And one last example is the 30-something members. The Speaker has a 30-something working group where members of Congress, 30 in the 30-ish range. Mr. Meeks now, I believe, at 39, so I don't know what's going to happen. It might be 40-something members soon. They had this giant rubber stamp that we built, and they would go on the floor every night, about the rubber stamp Congress. And this was the 109th Congress, was the rubber stamp Congress, where the Congress just rubber stamped everything Bush did. And so they realized when we took over the majority, what are they going to do with this giant rubber stamp? So we recorded a video of him, and he is asking folks what he should do with the rubber stamp.
I'm Congressman Kendrick Meek. I represent Miami, Florida, here in the Congress. I'm a part of the new Democratic majority here in the U.S. House of Representatives.
It's basically him and the rubber stamp.
Wanted to thank you on behalf of the 30-something working group, especially to our loyal C-SPAN.
And he goes into that, but I want to show you a little clip of another. There was a series of 3, and so, they did the first video where they were introducing that they needed to get rid of the rubber stamp. And then the second one was him asking people on the street.
To what we have.
Hi, I'm Congressman Kendrick Meek again from the 17th
So he basically walks around the Capitol asking people what they should do.
New Democratic
it was one of
the
I think we'll be seeing more of this where members of Congress use video to ask folks what they should be doing and then report back in video form. So it's a continual dialogue. All right, that's my fancy PowerPoint presentation.